Well, I was raised up here at Mount Trumbull, Bundyville, and I've been going to the river here since I was about 8 years old. I've been working for the Heatons here basically since August of '83 in the summers. Back when the boys were young, I helped 8 or 9 months. Now it's mostly 6 months. As the boys got grown and involved in the business, then they used me just mainly with the river season, and I don't do anything with the cows. I used to help with the cows too. When Tony had anything happening, well, I'd help him do that also. We had horses and mule rides out back in the early days. He went the helicopter in '85. I did not help him in '85. I needed a job in '86. I asked him if he needed help. I came back. I've been on that helipad down there since '86. Gavin's renamed it now. It's the Garth Bundy helipad. It ain't the Whitmore helipad. Well, the bartender's always treated me so good, and I've always never felt like it was a job 8 to 5. Hell, will quitting time ever come? It's never been that way. There's always plenty to do. So even though you work 14 or 15 hours a day, it ain't boring. Never has been. I always say if I get bored, I'll create some nonsense, tease somebody or something. So
Sure.
that's what I've always done, and I've always tried to have a good positive attitude and upbeat. Tony used to say in August, the people help started winding down and not for sure they wanted to see any more tourists. He'd say, Garth, you got to get us by the bootstraps and pull us up and keep us going. It's August. We got to get through the summer. And he liked to have me do that, and I probably was pretty good at that. And I still try to do that and keep the kids happy and upbeat and tease them and stuff like that. He likes this. He's still doing this. He likes it, you know. And a lot of them come back that have seen me several times over a few years or a bunch of years. Some of them come back that have been 25 years ago. Today I had a guy who was here 25 years ago. And most of them remember me. Well, you're missing on a real choice experience to not come to the bartend and at least hang out here and do a few bartend things, even if you don't get to do a river trip. And the river trip is the experience of a lifetime. There's no way it can be duplicated for a vacation, in my opinion. It just is really something special. And it don't matter whether it's a lower river trip or an upper river trip. And some people do the lower, and that whets their appetite for more. They come back and do an upper. Some come back and do a lower more than once, and a lot of them do the upper several times. So it's interesting to see how that works. Well, that was Roy Wood. He homesteaded and was in this area for a number of years, and he had more than one run-in with the Bundy family. And it got pretty tense at times with him in the area because he was very notorious and very ornery. I am quite sure if you counted notches on your gun for people killed, he'd have several on his in his lifetime, because in those early days, a lot of those cowboys, they settled arguments with guns. That's just how they did it. And he came out of Texas, I think, and I'm quite sure he had killed more than once in his life. And he finally moved out of here while I was still young, out into a remote area in Nevada, I think, to either save his life or some of the Bundy's lives, because he was afraid it was going to get to that point.
Well, what's your hope for the future? Last question. Hope for the future.
To keep on hanging on here at the bartend for as long as I can make it up and down that helipad down there. I don't know how much longer I'll last, but as long as Gavin can stand to have me, why, I'm going to stay. There I was. This is a story about one time I got stranded at the river when we were helicoptering. The weather was the wind was really, really bad, and we were in the middle of a pretty busy day. We had quite a little bit of helicoptering left to do. The helicopter came down with a load of guests to go downriver, and he couldn't land because of the wind. He had to take them back to the lodge. The wind was so bad he went downriver 5 or 6 miles, and the wind was holding him down. He couldn't get out. It scared him. But anyway, they did not fly the rest of the day that day. They came back about 5 o'clock. The wind was still bad. They circled and left us there till the next morning. We had guests there ready to go down the river. We had guests there still coming off of the river. I had just had a sandwich for lunch and had my pills. I'm a diabetic. Sorensen was worried about me and my diabetes. He's going to bring me my pills. I told him, you guys relax. I got my pills in my pocket for tonight. I'm fine. Well, as it turned out, we had to stay. We had about 40 guests there that night. We had some that were going down the river, some that were leaving the river. J.D. got his load of people down there. He had 18. He had brought 18 German people down the river, and he was on a two-way radio over on the helicopter side, and Bressler was over on across the river. Ben Bressler with a sat phone where he could talk to Trent, and they wanted to fly or get those Germans to get them across the river and have them walk out, and then haul them to the ranch with ATVs. And Bressler asked J.D. what the Germans were doing. He said, well, they're talking in German and they're waving their hands and they're not smiling. And their leader was a guy named Mish. And he was pretty nervous because he had some shows paid for in Las Vegas in advance, and he didn't want them to miss it. Well, he finally agreed for 15 of them to walk out. There was one gentleman that was already down there that was going downriver, had insulin in his bag, and it was to the river. And so Latimer, he went across with the German people and went to the ranch and took that gentleman's bag to him so he could have his medications that he needed. Mish, after he got his people up out of there, and Ben gave him a little Colorado Kool-Aid, he relaxed and was a pretty good head. He came back again the next year with a group, and we had a little weather-related problems again, but not as bad. I asked him if he's going to come back again the next year. He said, oh, probably. But anyway, there were about 40 of us there, boatmen and river guests, and they had a cot for me and a sleeping bag, and I done fine. Got up the next morning, ate a sensible breakfast, had my pills. No, had no pills the next morning. I had them the night before. But there happened to be a seat I could go to the ranch and back. So I did and got morning pills that I needed. And we got it done. We flew those first people early that morning, and then later more river guests came and went. But that helicopter pilot, he did not like to come to the bar 10 after that. Send me to Page or somewhere else. Don't send me to the bar 10.
Okay. Before we read the scripts, did you have any, did you think anything about lessons that you would share with the guides? Any words of wisdom, what you've learned in your 47 years?
47 years.
Well, you're only 47, aren't you?
Yeah, plus 47. I'll be 85 in September.
Well, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
What have you learned in your 80 plus years? What's important?
I'll soon be 85. My name is Garth Bundy. I grew up on the Arizona Strip. I've learned a lot about life, and some of the words of wisdom I can pass on is to always have a good attitude and smile. That will take you further than anything that I can think of in this world. The Grand Canyon is about 300 miles long. I helped build a dam at Page when I was young. Joined the Teamsters there in 1958. Jimmy Hoffa was in power. I always kid Sam one of Jimmy's little gangsters. And I worked at the dam off and on through the mid-60s when it was completed. Later I became a helper in the Grand Canyon, taking people in and out of the canyon. Georgie White started running the river a long time ago, and my Uncle Chet took gasoline and supplies to her when I was in my mid-teens, and I helped there. Then later, after the dam was completed, river running became very popular, and they started taking people out of the Grand Canyon at Whitmore in '72. I helped then with mule rides a bit, and then Tony started taking river guests out in 1980. I started helping in 1983, a couple of years of mule rides, and then he went to a helicopter. '85, first year of helicopter, I did not help him. Then I went back in '86, worked around the helicopter for 30 years. Put a lot of people in and out of helicopters in that 30 years. The thing I enjoyed about the bartend the most was, I suppose, there was always something to do. You worked long days and you took care of people. And the young people that came there, it was very interesting to me to see how they would grow and learn to deal with people and become confident with people and able to interact with them and take care of them and entertain them, perform for them, and become confident in their abilities and able to meet the world after that. The Heatons have always been very, very good to me. When I first went there, the kids were all young, and I partially helped raise them. Most of my kids have worked at the bartend one time or another, and we've become quite close that way. Like I say, I kind of helped raise them, and now they became my bosses, and they've always treated me excellent. It's been a super experience for me to be able to work at the Grand Canyon all these years. I grew up about 20 miles from the Grand Canyon. My people came into the area and settled there in 1916 and 17. My first trip to the Grand Canyon was we walked about 8 or 9 miles down there. I was about 8 years old, and I've been going to the river at Whitmore Wash ever since. When we loaded the helicopters with people, you had to have their weight to balance the helicopter properly and not overload it. You could crash if you did some of those things. And we only had, in my years there, we only had 2 or 3 close calls with that. And thank goodness we were always in parameters. Sometimes those helicopters get in a situation like that, the pilot, they have to over-torque that helicopter, which is very expensive. To their bosses, they're a heel. It cost a lot of money. But to me, they were heroes because they did what they had to do to save lives. Anyway, I developed a saying that if you lie, you die. And I would tell the people that down there, and then I had to ask the ladies their weight. It made them kind of nervous, but I got away with it because I had a way to do it with people and make it work. One lady told me once, I cheated a little bit, but I put it on my son. But that became a kind of a famous saying with the boatmen, and still is a little bit. I think some of them use a little bit. And when you're on a river trip, always remember, boatmen don't lie, but they're a little careless with the truth, sometimes called BS. I had a very good rapport with the boatmen in the canyon, the Western River boatmen. Were always special. Treated me good, and I treated them good. Now that I have left down there, they miss having me there, I'm quite sure, to BS the people a little bit, relax them, because some of them are quite nervous about a helicopter ride, and I could tell them jokes or something and make them take their mind off of that, and that worked good. But the Western boatmen and family do an excellent job of taking care of their people in the Grand Canyon. They run an excellent trip and do a super job, and people appreciate that. Their lives, a lot of them change. They never quite look at life the same after they do a Grand Canyon river trip. It is quite an experience for them. Me and Louise have been married for 59 years now. We have children, 7 children. First 2 was boys, and then we have 5 girls. And we've had a super good life, very little friction, and she's always supported me super good. Negatory. It makes a good story, though. I got a stick the kids got me several years ago. I didn't need it at the time they got it for me, but I do now because I've had some health issues and I need a prop. That's my city stick. I've also got a country stick that I use a lot, and it came from the Grand Canyon.
Right.
I suppose my picture is all over the world. Some places they throw darts at it, others they praise me because of the things that they learned for me, with me, and about me while they were on their river trip. I had more interaction with the overnight guests than I did other guests. Pretty short time with the upper river guests, but there's still a lot of them that remember me and come looking for me when they come back and want to know where I'm at. I get reports every week about people, where's Garth? Because I was down there for 30 years and became somewhat of a legend down there, I think, in some ways. Georgie was a legend in her time, but I've had boatmen tell me that I was as much of a legend in the Grand Canyon as Georgie was, so maybe so, I don't know. Western River guests that I've helped at the river, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Good luck. If you get bucked off, get up and get back on. Go again.
If this was the last time you had a chance on camera to say something to either your family, your kids, the world, what would you say?
I want to be known as honest, dependable, and hardworking, and I think I have accomplished that. And that will do a lot for any of you that out in this world, is to have those traits. I dearly appreciate the bartend and the relationship we've had over the years. And I thank them highly for letting me be there as many years as I was. I started helping Tony in '83, and I made it to 16 and part of 17 before I was done. So it's been quite a life for me, and I grew up out there. We raised cattle. My people did, livestock, sheep first, and then cattle. And they developed water sources down toward the river and wintered their livestock down there. So I've been around the canyon all my life, and it's a great, great place, and I really like the Arizona Strip and the Grand Canyon. Thank you very much. Always do your best. Never do a job half-baked. Do it to the best of your ability, and you will always be happier, satisfied, and always be dependable. That's the greatest. And smile, be happy. Nobody likes a grouch. So learn to be happy no matter what, even when you don't feel like it.
Very good. Thank you.
We have a picture over on the wall of me on a horse. It was probably the last time I got on one, and I rode off into the sunset. And it was a great experience to participate in that, doing that for camera and for people to know and learn a little bit about me if they want to. That's super. I'm really pleased about that.
God gave us a spectacular sunset that night.
The weather was perfect. It was perfect. The weather was very iffy that day, and we turned out great. The Bartend Ranch is a working cattle ranch. It's over 200,000 acres, can run about 1,000 head of cattle. It's quite a place. It's huge. When you get to the Bartend Ranch on the 4-day trip, you will eat lunch, go to the ranch house, and hear some stories, history and stories about the area and the beef business and things like that. They are a super crew of people the young people there learn awfully well to interact with people and become confident with themselves. They really grow up, and that impresses me a lot with how the bartend is for the people that work there and the people that come by and how they are treated while they're at the bartend.
Maybe say something like, it's well worth adding an extra day on the end of your trip or the front of your trip to stay at the bartend.
And it's well worth your time to take an extra day on the end of an upper trip to spend a day at the bartend and get the bartend experience. It's good.
Great.
I'll try and do Home on the Range and then battle him after that.
That'd be great. Nice.
Burp's trying to interrupt me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Let's read that cowboy poem, and then I'm going to get out of here and head north while you can have your afternoon nap.
I had it.
Did you? Boy, I was beat yesterday. It was hot. It was 118 at Lee's Ferry.
It was?
That's what my car thermometer said, and I told Kellen, she said, it can't be that hot. So I got in my car and I drove
A ways?
a ways and dropped to 116. And where they've got those big boulders, there's a little pull out there, and I got there and some of the asphalt was getting mushy. It was so hot.
That's damn hot for Lee's Ferry. That's Pierce Ferry.
Oh, it was so hot. And it was 106 last night at 9 o'clock at night.
And Lee says she's been to Pierce when it was 125.
Yeah, that's...
You want me to give who this is by, or just,
Sure, yeah, give the
or
attribution.
just?
That'd be great.
This is a poem called "The Grand Canyon Cowboy" by S. Omar Barker, 1894 to 1985. I've heard of the canyon, the old cowboy said, and I figured I'd like to go take a see it. So I rode till I sighted a rim out ahead and reckoned this place might be it. I anchored my horse to a juniper limb, crawled to the edge for a peek. One look was plenty to make my head swim, and all of my innards felt weak. If I'd have known how darn deep it was going to be, I'd have managed to some hook or crook to tie my own self to the doggone tree and let my horse go take the look.
I had that exact feeling.
Cowboy's reincarnation for you if you want.
Sure. Okay.
What is reincarnation? A cowboy asked his friend. It's what happens when your life comes to an end. They wash your hair, you wash your neck, comb your hair, clean your fingernails, put you in a padded box away from life's travails. Now the box and you goes in a hole that's been dug in the ground. Reincarnation starts in when you're planted beneath that mound. Then clods melt down just like the box and you's inside. That's when you're beginning your transformation ride. In a while the grass will grow upon your rendered mound, until someday upon that spot a lonely flower is found. Then a horse may wander by and graze on that flower that once was you and has now become your vegetative bower. Well, the flower the horse done ate, along with his other feed, makes bone and fat, and his muscle essential to the steed. But there's a part that he can't use, so it passes through. There it lies upon the ground, this thing that once was you. If perchance I should pass by and see this on the ground, I'll stop a while, I'll ponder on this object that I have found. I'll think about reincarnation, life and death and such. I'll come away concluding you just ain't changed all that much.
You're a keeper.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
You are too.
I really appreciate you taking time to do this for us.
No problem.